Little Meadow Creek runs languidly through the Piedmont countryside near the small town of Locust, southeast of Concord. In the closing days of the 19th century, however, Little Meadow Creek became the site of an event that would catapult North Carolina to national notoriety. It all began when 12-year-old Conrad Reed decided to go fishing with a bow and arrow. That's when he spotted a yellowish, anvil-shaped 17-pound rock in the creek bed. Ever the practical man, Conrad's father, John, a German immigrant and Cabarrus County farmer, thought it would make a wonderful doorstop. Dr. Richard Knapp, who knows a lot about the history of gold mining in North Carolina, picks up the story.
John Reed really didn't know what he had with that old doorstop that his son had found. It'd been around the house for a few years, so one day, in 1802, he took it on a marketing trip to Fayetteville, and he sold that piece of rock for a week's wages. That's not a bad deal for an old doorstop.
The following year, he took on 3 partners and began mining at a part-time pace that didn't move much faster than parts of the creek. Farming came first, and in their off hours, the partners dug and panned the low spots in Little Meadow. Children still come to the Reed Gold Mine today on school trips to tour the grounds and try their luck at panning, each hoping to strike gold, even if the tiniest flakes.
We find a little bit every day. It could be dust or a flake, and occasionally a nugget. No gold in that pan, buddy. We tried. All right, man, let's see if we can retire today. There's some gold. See him right there?
Right there.
You found gold?
Mm-hmm.
Can I have it, Mom? Can I have it? Yes!
Eventually, another big nugget was found at Reed, a 28-pounder. Stimulated by this find, Reed and his partners eventually began underground mining, seeking veins of white quartz that contained the gold.
What you see at the Reed Gold Mine are some very long, big veins, like some of these, that the miners clearly followed. And then you also see some later veins that cross-cut them. But usually there's only one set of veins that's very rich in gold, and that's what they followed at the Reed Mine.
It's hard to imagine what life must have been like for the people working here, and in other mines that eventually stretched from Charlotte in a northeastern crescent as far as Guilford County.
It was rough. A lot of the people that went down in the mines had no choice. A lot of slave labor was used. Other people worked there because it was a fairly steady job and a good wage, but it was incredibly dangerous.
Many of the tunnels were only 4.5 to 5.5 feet in height and 3 to 4 feet wide. Many miners would work 6 days a week, up to 12 hours a day, with only 75 cents per day as pay. And for lights, the miners also would have used candles, either on top of their hats to see with or on candle spikes drilled to the side of the rock wall.
This pit in the ground at Reed is all that remains of a mine shaft. Imagine climbing down 400 feet in some Carolina mines, and that's before getting to work with pickaxe and black powder for those 12-hour days, and then climbing back up the ladder again. John Reed died wealthy in 1845, not knowing that his mine and others in North Carolina would soon be eclipsed by the 1849 California gold rush. The Reed mine still operates today, not as a going gold concern, but a state-owned historical and educational attraction where you can still try your luck next to Little Meadow Creek. Or watch and listen to a huge and noisy ore-crushing stamp mill further down the creek. After the ore is crushed into fine pieces, water flow carries it below to these amalgamation plates, where flecks of gold are separated from the quartz and other materials. Between 1804 and 1827, North Carolina supplied all the domestic gold minted by the U.S. government, a fact that bode well for our state, at least for a while.
By the mid-1830s, there was too much gold floating around Charlotte. It was too hard to take it up to the only U.S. Mint in Philadelphia because that was a dangerous road. It took weeks to get there. You had to go on a horseback or in a wagon and risk robbers along the way.
In 1831, the private Bachelor Mint in Rutherfordton took up the slack, followed in late 1837 by completion of the U.S. Mint at Charlotte. The Charlotte Mint produced over $5 million in gold coins until it was shut down as the Civil War commenced. Today, the Mint, rebuilt after a fire in 1844, is a celebrated museum. Inside, a treasure's worth of gold coins is on display, some quite rare. All in all, the entire North Carolina gold industry is said to have about broken even. Maybe so, but its presence has enriched our state's history. And although the search for gold here largely has ceased, and most of the old mining-related communities have slipped into the shadows, it is instructive to consider what might have been had North Carolina gold not begun to peter out in the 1840s.
By 1840, Charlotte had less than 1,000 people, but 100 people in Mecklenburg County were gold miners. And Charlotte also had 15 operating gold mines and 15 distilleries. Pretty wild place. Today, if you go to downtown Charlotte at that famous corner of Trade and Tryon, you're not far from where some of the most famous mines in North Carolina were.
Eventually, Charlotte grew to prominence as a national banking center and became a sparkling jewel in North Carolina's crown. But what if, as Richard Knapp suggests, gold mining had continued to grow? Would Charlotte still be known as the Gold City? Or even the San Francisco of the East? And what if... could there yet be gold around these parts?